Hello, you're watching Vnews Bulletin. I'm Nhung from Hanoi, and now the headlines as usual. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính meets voters in Cần City. Vice President Võ Thị Ánh Xuân meets Senate Chairman of Kazakhstan. And later on, Vietnam's human rights achievements recognized internationally. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính on October the 13th paid a working visit to Cần City, where he had a meeting with local voters. At the meeting, voters showed their delight at positive outcomes of the COVID-19 fight, as well as socio-economic recovery and development of the country. They raised concern about a number of issues related to the living conditions of the locals and socio-economic development of Cần Thơ and the Mekong Delta region in general. Prime Minister Chính asked relevant agencies to respond to proposals and requests of the voters and report issues beyond their capacity to the government, as well as ministries and sectors. He also answers questions raised by voters on transport projects, the shortage of medicine and medical equipment, and the teaching of the language of the Khmer community, among others. We have more news coming up next. Let's take a look.
A visiting delegation of the Communist Party of Vietnam attended a tense theoretical exchange with the Japanese Communist Party on October 13. The Vietnamese side was led by Politburo member Nguyễn Xuân Thắng, who is also chairman of the Central Theoretical Council and director of Ho Chi Minh National Academy of Politics. Meanwhile, Tanaka Yu, standing member of the Presidium, deputy head of the Secretariat of Japanese Communist Party, headed the host team. This time, the exchange between the two parties was themed Building Real Socialism in the 21st Century, a new approach to practice and theory. The opinions focused on the development trend of real socialism in the world in the 21st century, including those in Vietnam and Japan.
Vice President Võ Thị Ánh Xuân, who is paying a visit to Kazakhstan, had meetings with her host country's leaders on October the 13th. At the meeting with Chairman of the Senate of the Kazakh Parliament, Molen Ashimbaev, Vice President Xuân stressed that Vietnam always treasures the South tradition friendship with Kazakhstan. She also expressed her delight at the progress recorded in political ties between the two nations by maintaining exchanges of their state and parliament delegations. Lauding tight and effective collaboration between the two parliaments, Xuân and Ashimbaev agreed to further the ties by boosting the exchange of delegations and experiences on legislative works and coordinating in monitoring and promoting the effective implementation of bilateral agreements. Discussing regional and international issues of mutual concern, they agreed that all disputes and conflicts must be resolved by peaceful means on the basis of international law. On the same day, Xuân received Ambassador Khairat Saribay, Executive Director of CICA Secretariat, and Minakashi Lekhi, Indian Minister of State for External Affairs and for Contra. She met the liaison committee of the Kazakhstan-Vietnam Friendship Association, attended a ceremony marking the 30th anniversary of the Vietnam-Kazakhstan diplomatic relations. Vietnam will work alongside with the international community to build a world of peace where all people, states and nations may benefit from the fruits of development and social progress and where no one is left behind. Foreign Minister Bùi Thanh Sơn has said he made the statement in an interview with the press on the occasion of Vietnam's fresh election to the UN Human Rights Council for 2023-2025 tenure.
Foreign Minister Bùi Thanh Sơn said Vietnam's election to the United Nations Human Rights Council is of great importance in various ways. It has reaffirmed Vietnam's sound and consistent position and policy on the special importance attached to the human factor and on how best Vietnam can harness the human element in national development.
Vietnam's active participation in and contribution to the Council will broadcast a strong message of a peace-loving Vietnam that champions humanistic and humanitarian values.
Regarding the directions and priorities of Vietnam in its upcoming term on the UN Human Rights Council, Foreign Minister Sun said Vietnam will join hands with other member states to advance initiatives and solutions for the right to live in peace, right to development, rights of vulnerable groups, gender equality, right to access to health care, education and employment, and response to climate change and epidemics, among many others.
As a reliable partner and an active and responsible member, Vietnam will continue to work closely with fellow member states and make substantial contribution to the common work of the Council.
Vietnam has just been elected to the UN Human Rights Council for the 2023-2025 tenure, according to a senior research fellow at the Jakarta-based Centre for Southeast Asian Studies. Vietnam's success in the election, the second of its kind, is the international recognition of the country's commitments to the protection of human rights.
The journalist said the election of Vietnam as a new member of the UN Human Rights Council is also a reflection of the country's status in the region as a rising star with a rapidly growing economies and exports.
This is a recognition of Vietnam's commitment to human rights, protection of human rights in the country. So it is a very honor for Vietnam in the international arena.
He praised Vietnam as a responsible member that has actively supported UN organizations and the UN's Human Rights Council.
Vietnam is a responsible United Nations member. The Vietnam government has pledged to respect human rights and human freedoms, and also for economic development, and to protect the welfare of the people.
The country has a very good record in international organizations, he added, which is further recognition of its commitments to human rights.
Vietnam continues to call for an end to conflicts, the restoration of peace, and the protection of people's security and safety, and essential infrastructure facilities. Ambassador Đặng Hoàng Giang, permanent representative of Vietnam to the UN, said at a recent emergency session of the 77th UN General Assembly on the situation in Ukraine.
Ambassador Đặng Hoàng Giang called on sides to persistently promote dialogues and negotiations to seek long-term solutions to disputes in accordance with international law and the UN Charter, with legitimate interests of relevant sides taken into account for peace and stability in the region and the world. He said Vietnam welcomes and supports diplomatic efforts to ease tensions, including the endeavors by the UN Secretary-General and other concerned parties, and stands ready to actively contribute to the efforts as well as the reconstruction and restoration in Ukraine. The General Assembly on October 12 adopted a resolution on the situations in Ukraine.
Cambodia and Vietnam lead the Southeast Asian region that is on the mend from the pandemic, Nikkei's latest and last COVID-19 recovery index shows.
Nikkei's index assesses 121 countries and regions on infection management, vaccine rollouts, and social mobility. A higher ranking indicates a more advanced recovery, characterized by lower infection and death rates, better inoculation coverage, and fewer restrictions on movement. Cambodia and Vietnam had early success in managing the coronavirus 1 year into the pandemic, but were then hit hard by the Delta variant in the middle of 2021, when they had barely started mass inoculations. This forced the duo to impose tough measures, including lockdowns. Nevertheless, they successfully expedited their inoculation drives. Vietnam earned full marks, or score of 30 for vaccinations in the latest index, while Cambodia scored 29. Their progress has translated into brighter economic outlooks. In its latest economic forecast, the World Bank raised Vietnam's annual growth prediction to 7.2% from 5.3%.
On October 12, Vietjet announced that it will open direct flights from the central city of Nha Trang to Almaty City, the commercial and cultural center of Kazakhstan.
The announcement ceremony, witnessed by visiting Vice President Võ Thị Ánh Xuân and leaders of the government of Kazakhstan, was an activity to celebrate the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Under its plan, Vietjet will arrange 2 return flights weekly, using A30 aircraft with flight time of about 9 hours. The route is expected to go into operation this month. Almaty City is the largest economic center and also a popular tourist destination in Kazakhstan. Meanwhile, Nha Trang is one of the top tourist destinations in Vietnam. With the decision to open this direct route, Vietjet hopes to continue to promoting tourism as well as trade and investment relations between the two countries. Recently, Vietjet has restored and opened a number of new routes to India, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. The airline also plans to open more routes to Europe and Australia.
The 2022 Mekong Tourism Forum opened in the central province of Quảng Nam on October the 12th with the participation of more than 250 delegates from Vietnam and other great Mekong sub-region nations, as well as international tourism organizations.
The forum themed Rebuild Tourism, Rebound with Resilience, featured 3 interactive expert-led panel discussions centering on measures for sustainable tourism recovery, development and promotion, new methods to connect sustainable tourism suppliers and buyers, and technology to unlock green tourism opportunities.
The domestic market. As far as international markets, right now we're at about 30%. So 30% what we saw in
2026, the Mekong Tourism Forum is an annual event for tourism development and cooperation in the Greater Mekong sub-region, which comprises Cambodia, China, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand and Vietnam.
We have positive outcomes coming, and it's going to be maybe slower than many people would hope for. But I think we're already seeing some positive results, and I think the important thing...
The forum is an opportunity for stepping up tourism promotion and cooperation. Quảng Nam is committed to the sustainable growth of the tourism industry and protecting the natural environment.
According to insiders, Greater Mekong sub-region nations pay attention to policies, regulations, and investments necessary to ensure tourism recovery and sustainability, particularly in terms of quality infrastructure and nature-based solutions.
Vietnam ranks 4th in the list of most Google tourist destinations by Australians over the past 20 years, according to Google. Japan took the lead in the ranking, followed by New Zealand and Thailand.
In July, the Australian Bureau of Statistics also revealed that Vietnam was among the top 10 most popular destinations for Australian travelers in July, with more than 18,500 Australians visiting the Southeast Asian country in the month. Before the COVID-19 broke out in 2019, Australia was the next biggest source of tourists to Vietnam, with about 383,000. After both countries reopened their borders, the number of Australia's visitors to Vietnam has risen considerably. Vietnam welcomed over 1.8 million foreign tourists in the 9-month period, of which 1.2 million were recorded in the third quarter of this year, 2.5 times the figure in the previous quarter.
Mứt hạt bàng, or terminalia catapultis jam, is a popular dish of Con Đảo Island in the southern province of Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu. It's called jam in Vietnamese, but it is actually peanuts that are roasted with sugar or salt. Visitors to Con Đảo Island should not miss trying the local specialty.
The nuts are made from the seeds of terminalia catapultis, which are symbol of Con Đảo Island. There's no common recipe, as it all depends on the cooking skills of each family.
I have been making peanut jam for 8 years, and it is popular among visitors.
When harvesting the seeds, I only picked the ripe ones in the morning or at night.
According to local people, the terminalia catapultis jam made on Con Đảo Islands is better than what is found out west, because the seeds are selected from 100-year-old trees, creating fresher and more delicious products.
And that has wrapped up the news bulletin. Thanks for watching and see you next time.